This is the shit box. It looks like shit, sounds like shit. It's in a shitty box. It's the shit box. What I did was took an old digital drum toy that my children had. It wasn't working anymore. The piezos were starting to fail inside, I think. But I liked the sounds. I liked the lo-fi crunchiness. Let me turn it around here. Of course, this is the back that the audience would see. That's why I put that there so people would know what it was when I was playing at stadiums and festivals. Come on. There we go. So what we have on here is, first I'll show you the control panel. There we go. This is a control panel. Let me get closer so you can see everything on there. There we go. So what we have on the control panel is different rhythm demo selections that you can play, like this. Nice. Some really terrible ones like this. There's rock. Oh God, stop. Anyway, what we have on here is cowbell 1, cowbell 2, woo, and scratch. Tempo for the rhythm, slide for the rhythm, level, slide, volume slide I mean. Drum pad volume. There are obviously no drum pads on here because I ripped it all apart. I cannibalized the machine, you could say. I did keep the piezos so that if there's a project later that I want to use piezos on, I can do that. So there's start stop on there, and you can see there's classic mode and electronic. And I'll get into the difference about that in a sec. It affects some of the drum pad sounds. So let's look at the inputs, which are right here. Let's take a look inside so I can show you what I did after I cut the piezo leads off. Simply cut those off. Easy. Let me remove this carefully. There we go. So what I did on the end of the piezo, or the leads that I cut, see I have them all labeled here, there's snare drum. Oops. What I did was soldered each wire into the 1/4 inch TRS input. So I just basically snipped the piezo and soldered a 1/4 inch jack on. Let me just lower the camera. No. There we go. Zoom back a bit. There we go. Zoom out. First off, clearly labeled the output. It's a mono signal. No MIDI. No USB. No parameter locks. This is all just straight up in your face digital circuit bullshit. So what we have here are inputs. So instead of hitting a pad, which would trigger the piezo, these can be triggered by an external audio input. What I plan on doing is using this with something like the Arturia Drum Brute that has all those individual outputs. You could do it with any audio signal if it's hot enough. And what I mean by that is something that's screaming loud. I've got another toy synth that I've done a little mod on, and the signal coming from it is so hot that it will actually trigger this. Something like the signal from a monotron, for example, not hot enough to trigger it. So I'm not sure when I get the Drum Brute if I'm going to have to amplify the signal so that it will trigger these, but the idea is that I'm going to be able to trigger these individually and use it for an additional set of lo-fi instruments, which I think will add some character and be cool. So let's have a listen. I'm sure everyone's dying to hear the bass drum. Put it on classic. Trigger it with my other modified toy synth here. There's classic bass drum. There's electronic. Gritty, nasty, lo-fi. What do we have here? This is the hi-hat. Let's have a listen. Basic stuff. I think there's a little phasing or something going on there. I'm not sure what that is. So that's on electronic. Now it's on classic. Same. That's one of the sounds that does not change. I'm going to skip this jack for obvious reasons because there's nothing there yet. I have to buy more jacks. Here's a crash. Classic. It's not choking itself out. It's not. It's creating some kind of phasing when I. So that's the crash, which is the same on classic or electronic. Snare. Everybody loves a snare on a shitty drum machine. Let's hear this. Classic mode. Electronic mode. Wow. Really heavy hitting on the mids there. You won't be able to hear that on the camera, but it's just really rocking my 5-inch woofers. Not much coming through really on the low end, but really focused on the mid-range. Interesting. So that's electronic, classic. I enjoy both of them. The drawback with classic and electronic is that I can have only one sound set or the other. I can't mix. Small tom on classic. About what you'd expect. Real crappy. Electronic. Like a little punchy blip or something. Pretty similar to the snare. Back to classic. So there we go. You can see the medium and floor tom will be there once I have the jacks for it. They're going to sound a lot like the small tom, just pitched down probably. Something I haven't hooked up yet is this audio input. 1/8 inch, 3.5 mil. So could play another instrument through it. And there's space on here on the board for a mic input. And I could probably solder something up as well if I wanted to, another input instead of using a piece like this. So there we have it. That's the ship box. A lot of fun for me to do. Cool project. Took an old toy, hacked it to pieces. Then this came out. I think it's going to be fun with the drum machine or whatever else I can trigger it with. I don't have anything right now to trigger it with, otherwise I'd be rocking out with it. Should be a good addition to another drum machine or a sequencer or something like that. But right now, like I said, I was triggering it with my other modified toy synth. I got to figure out how hot the signals have to be, like what kind of voltage it has to be. I'm sure I'll figure that out. That shouldn't be too hard. I was concerned about the brain of it being stable. A lot of toys will turn off after a certain time if you don't use them. If this does turn off, it takes a long time, like over 5 minutes, because I was letting it idle for a very long time and then triggering it and it was working fine. So that was one of my main concerns, was it being stable, and it seems very stable. The batteries last a long time on it, so I'm really pleased with all of that. Once I get some more jacks in there, this thing will be beaut. Thanks for checking out the shitbox.